Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abi.
That's me.
That's you.
And you. Would you please do that pep talk that you just gave me?
Oh,
for the
I was
live
saying,
audience?
I was saying, you can start this. You can do it. I believe in you. You got the magic. You got this. It's in you. You're capable. You're powerful. You're beautiful. You bring it to the table. You take all that energy from deep within inside and you explode. Explode with pleasure and a funny story. Do it. Do it. Go. Now. 1, 2, 3. Do it. 1, 2, 3. Do it. Now.
I can't. I don't have anything coming
right.
to my mind. I just thought that
Well,
you were being hysterical.
I guess. Whatever. You can't force funny.
I know. Here's the thing.
Unless you're Robin Williams.
You
I wish
come
he was
up,
alive still. He could drop funny at any moment.
You think of things all the time that are funny.
Do I?
Mm-hmm. I can only be funny if I'm not thinking about trying to be funny.
Oh, when you get put on the spot,
Yeah, I
you
can't do
like
it.
ice over.
100%. I'm iced
Paralyzed.
over right now. Clearly, I have nothing interesting to say.
Do you think it's that you like suddenly can't be funny?
Yeah, I suddenly
Or
can't
do you
be
think you're not
funny.
normally funny, but you're not aware of how unfunny you are until you're like put on the spot and you're like, wow, none of what I have to say is funny. I'm
dying over here.
I was just saying.
Oh, gosh. No, I'm
Goo,
funny.
Gee whiz.
I'm funny, but I'm not like, I can't consistently be funny if I need to be.
Yeah.
I'm only like surprisingly funny where often it surprises me.
There are certain people who have funny energy, and when I get with them, all of a sudden it pulls something out of me.
Yes.
You're not one of those people.
Wait, is that true?
What?
Is that true?
Huh? So my buddy
my
Craig,
gosh.
if he's listening, because he listens to this, the minute I get on the phone with Craig,
It's banter.
immediately we get into a great sarcastic,
But
playful
I'd say
banter back
funny
and
is
forth.
relative because when I hear you guys go back and forth, do I think it's the funniest thing I've ever heard? No.
Is it the well, you know, to someone who doesn't have humor, I understand that it's a mysterious thing that we're exchanging. Like, what is that they're doing? That seems weird that they're laughing about that. Oh, that's humor. I guess I don't have any of that.
I will say we did not have humor chemistry when we met.
We didn't? No, we didn't.
No, I remember thinking a lot of you.
Were you
things
like,
said were awkward?
did you think to yourself, I feel boring next to him?
No.
You thought I had awkward humor. You know
I
what?
thought you had awkward humor, and actually, a lot of your humor is inappropriate. And I was
Yeah.
very, very sheltered when I met you.
I think that's an understatement. Go ahead.
And so your humor, like, I didn't have context for it. I didn't know if they're like, one of the things you do is you're sarcastic about things. So you might be like, it's your job to get in the kitchen, Abby. Like, you might say a joke like that.
Well,
And I
not
didn't-
like that because it would be delivered much better.
I know. Okay. But you would say things that to you are funny humor to you. This is when the game changed for me, is when when I finally understood that things are funny if they're so ridiculous, because that's not true
Right.
to you.
If they sound offensive, like it's because I like it's funny because I'm like, oh, that's
You
offensive.
genuinely don't believe
I would
it.
never believe that. Like
Yeah.
that's not something that I would actually believe or feel about someone or say or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so to me, it's absurd. Like I'm saying the most absurd thing right now. Yeah. I've gotten in trouble for my humor.
But anyway, the longer I got married to you, the funnier you became. And I became funnier.
Well, you also adapted to the fact that I would purposely create awkward moments. Like I loved creating awkward moments.
Have I adapted to that fact?
I mean, you put up with it.
Do I go into fight or flight every time it happens?
Do I shut down and go internal and survive moments?
I tunnel in. I actually don't know. I don't remember last time I felt like you were trying to be awkward.
Well, I don't. I haven't been around people a lot while I've been building the house.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a great
Little
segue for our
hermit.
conversation today.
Oh, look at you, look at you, look at you.
I'm sorry you guys had to listen to 4 minutes of us being playful.
It made people's day. They need to hear. They need to hear that people can still be married and have fun.
What
Can
I
be
love
married and
about
still have fun.
one of the things I love about Borat is that character is hitting on all the social like niceties and how we should be acting. And so I love how emotionally obtuse he is to his environment and how he just pokes all the buttons.
I don't know. Never seen it.
I mean, I'm not recommending it. I just like human beings that are eccentric and weird, and I love
Quirky.
it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Quirky.
So building the house, we're going to talk about house building today, house building 101. We're going to talk about our house, not just our physical house, but our emotional house.
Oh, I see what you did there.
You see what I did?
We didn't even plan that.
As we jump into talking about our emotional house, we just want to remind you that today is the last day to sign up for Living Fully Alive.
I'm really excited about Living Fully Alive.
I love when people say, I'm really excited about something. I'm always like, I don't know that you are.
No,
Like,
I am. I'm so excited.
I am too. For most of you guys know, if you've been listening, you know about Living Fully Alive. So we're not going to go into too much detail about it. But right now, we're doing round 2. It helps people actually gain the foundational tools that they need to function healthily in a connected relationship with each other and their spouses, their kids. It helps us understand our personal human operating system. And because of what we created recently called the Immersion Program, there's a global community that is getting transformation together right now. And that's expediting everything that's happening. We're getting unbelievable feedback from people over and over again. Yep. Last week we shared a really cool experience that happened in our immersion program.
A couple of weeks ago before that. If you want to listen to hear what it's like, go back and listen to those. I just got a message that is so wonderful. I just got off the phone with my parents. Wow, 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 in all caps. I'm crying right now. They've been radically touched through Living Fully Alive. They were both crying, telling me how much they love it. My dad was telling me how it has brought love back to them in their marriage. My mom told me it feels like dad can love.
Wow. I didn't read this.
You haven't read this one. I know. They were thanking me and I just wanted to come and thank you because without you and Justin, they wouldn't be experiencing this. My dad has worked for 15 years in child safety, like a social worker under government direction. They remove minors ages 7 through 17 from abusive households and raise them in safe houses till they're 18 in in a rural area. I can't say the word. And he started using the tools at work with the kids.
What?
And he's training the workers. And they've had so many breakthrough in these children's lives, validating these kids' feelings and helping them process their trauma. All I can say is thank you, thank you, thank you. Now my dad is pushing for this government-funded organization to put all of their workers through LFA.
Shut up. I had no idea. I literally how did you not tell me about this?
I don't know. We've been busy. My mom is writing out all the testimonies they got out of the course and going to send it via email. All I can say is thank you. Really, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really, thank you.
Heck yeah. Kids' lives being changed from abusive households.
And not only that, but love being back in their marriage and them being able to love again. Like it's so beautiful. And, I never want people to feel like we're trying to sell something because that's not actually our hearts at all. We want to see families transformed. Yeah. We want to see people be able to have compassion on themselves and emotionally connect to themselves and connect to other people. And so,
That's awesome.
So sign up if you want to. Today's our last day. This is the last time we're doing it in 2021. The next round will be in a year, or not in a year, but in January. So sign up. And if you're listening to this after it happened and you're really sad that you missed us, email us and we'll put you on a list for the next thing we do.
Awesome. Well, we're going to talk about our house.
Yes.
Again, our physical house and our emotional one.
Yes.
And so in this last season, we feel like our house building has been remodeled, has been such a picture of our own hearts and our own lives that we feel like this is such a powerful parallel to our personal journeys. Mm-hmm. Do you want to start us off with that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember when we got the house and then you ripped everything out of it and gutted it.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's nothing left in this house. And once you're like gutted in the house, like you can't go back. You can't decide like, oh, actually, I don't want to do the kitchen right now.
No, you're already in the project and the process. And I remember having a moment where I was like, what did I do? What did I do?
Right. I had that moment. I was like, why did we do this? Why did we do this?
It's so funny.
But I remember when you were ripping everything out, I was like, oh my gosh, this feels like the journey of the last 4 years of my life.
Yeah.
It feels like just things are getting ripped out right and left, and things that had been there for years and years and years and years. And we're moving everything around, and we don't fully have vision for what is going to be put back in there. Like we're ripping the kitchen out, but we don't have a plan for what the kitchen is going to end up looking like. We just jumped in. We bought the house and immediately started.
I had some plans in my head for a master bathroom. So I had that going.
Yeah. And so it feels kind of like, I just remember there's seasons of demolition in our lives, seasons of things getting ripped out, and I know we use the analogy a lot of times of, you know, like if a bone breaks and then it heals wrong, it gets, you have to re-break it and set it to be in the right place. And then I think that analogy kind of goes along with like a house being demolished. I think about a lot of my childhood beliefs and a lot of my coping mechanisms that I learned as a kid. And they really helped me. Like the house that was here before we got it was a beautiful house for somebody. Not for us. But it was a beautiful house that really worked and was valuable. And I think that about, I was just talking to somebody yesterday about their personal journey, and there was such like villainization for their past self.
Yeah, they look back like, I can't believe I did that. I was a horrible person, or things like that. Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, actually, the house that was there before served a purpose.
Right.
And it was very beneficial. But there comes a time when it's time to move things around and make things
remodel and update and
And I feel like that's the soul journey that I've been on, of removing the things that actually weren't helpful, that actually weren't what I wanted, that actually didn't look like where I'm trying to get. And then going on the journey of putting new things in. You know, it's one thing to, I think for the first few years, it was just demolition, and all you can see is everything that's getting removed.
Right.
All you can see is everything that's being stripped away, everything that's being taken away. And it was everything for me. It was like body, relationships, career, like it was everything got stripped from me. And so all you're noticing is loss after loss after loss after
and
loss.
that's true in one of these types of like rebuilding or renovating seasons. We'll call it a renovating season. All it feels like is your whole world is falling apart.
Yes.
That's it, over and over again. And it feels almost like if you aren't aware of, oh, I'm in a renovation life process right now, you'll actually feel like life's just a cruel joke.
Yes. And you're not going anywhere. I remember in the season for me, over and over and over again, you would just hold me while I cried, and you would be like, this isn't the end. You're becoming who you want to become. You're going to be freer. You're going to be happier. You're going to have more joy. You're going to have more hope. Like over and over again, you would just tell me like, no, this isn't the end. And that is what so many people need to hear in the season where it feels like everything is being stripped away from them.
Big time. You know, I realize that a lot of people go into these things very, very overwhelmed because of a few things. One, they don't have clarity on the fact that they're in a renovation project. Two, even if they find out they're in a reno project, they get into it and they realize they don't even have the tools for it. And so now they feel overwhelmed because they're like, I don't have the tools. I don't have the knowledge of how to rebuild.
Right.
Like I don't have the necessary tools to do the rebuilding. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what the vision's going to be like moving forward. And they just feel overwhelmed. Then they begin to believe that they're alone in all of it. And
one of the most common feelings is, this is how it's going to be forever. That's how I felt the whole time. I was like, I'm never not going to feel alone like this. I'm never not going to feel powerless like this. I'm never not going to feel like everything's falling apart. Like I honestly believed, because especially if it's a long season, 4 years is a long time. It's not long when you think about the global lifetime.
The global lifetime.
Your entire life, I mean.
The entirety of maybe 90 to 100 years. On
Yeah,
Earth.
4 years is not that big. But when you're in the middle of 4 years or 6 years or 10 years, I mean, depends how you want to look at our lives and when the reno started. But and when you're in the middle of it, it feels like if this has been going on this long, it will go on forever. But with the renovation process, demo ended.
You know, it's interesting. This was kind of just thinking of a couple things. When I originally stepped into that house to look at buying it, we were hit with the smell of cat urine.
Oh, cat urine plus like assisted living home plus like dank skunk.
Yeah, like when our friends first came in the process of buying it, they're like,
plus like old people potpourri.
Yeah, they felt smashed in the face by the experience.
Most
and
people
like, what
couldn't
is
be
this?
in the house very long.
So, but what's very interesting is there are people who will live an entire life and they have no idea what they're living in.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on the previous owner. It's just like she had no idea what her experience was. And a lot of people like only when other people kind of walk into your life and they go, oh my God, what are you doing? You're like, what's wrong? Welcome to my house and stuff like that. And a lot of times we spiral into shame about like, oh, you're offended by the smell of my house. Get out. But actually, like there'll be people who will come across your life who will begin to show signs of like, hey, I think there needs to be some renovation here.
Totally.
Something about your life is really dank. It's hit me hard. I'm having a reaction to your life. And so first and foremost, if you're not in a renovation season and you're just living life and you see people like having reactions, you have to begin to ask like, is there something about my life that needs to be renovated? That I have been in a normal life. To me, my normal is far from the reality of everyone else's normal.
Or even just like my normal isn't what I want it to be.
Right.
I know you really can acclimate to a lot of things.
Right.
Case in point, my parents became hoarders.
Right.
My mom was a hoarder for sure. And my dad, not as much. But in that, I acclimated to the ability to just live with crazy amounts of stuff.
This is just what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, it was never like, oh, I love this, but it can just become normal.
Which, by the way, when you'd make enormous messes all over our house when we early got married, and I'd be like, this is a total mess. And you're like, no, it's not. It's clean.
Oh, totally.
But literally, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't been in your home. I didn't put together like,
this is clean for you.
Oh, that's right. You come from a hoarder family. This is like spotless.
Totally. Totally. But so the idea is I had to see somebody who had a different reality than me, which was you had a different reality and you're like, we could live this different way. And part of that is what woke me up to my need for renovation. Like heart renovation of like, oh, there is a different way. And there's a lot of ways that you've done that. You have shown up differently than what I grew up in. And it has sparked me to think I have to think about this differently.
Yeah, you've done the same thing as well. Just kudos back to you.
Thanks.
But so when you initially get into it, I know that people will get into the renovation process and they'll really go after it. Backing up to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Like I initially jump in and I start just ripping everything out. I'm like, let's just demo this. It's going to be great.
Totally.
And then all of a sudden you realize you're deep into heart stuff. You're like, what the hell did I do?
This is every person after they've started seeing a counselor or consultant for like a month. They're like, why do I feel all of these things?
Yeah, get me out of here.
This is like in Living Fully Alive, there's like a curve. And so like the first 4 weeks, people are like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. It's like a roller coaster. And then it starts like, then there's a shifting point where then people are like, oh, this is amazing. This is what I've been looking for my whole life. But there's this curve point of like, why do I feel all these feelings?
Yep, totally. Total meltdowns. And it's interesting because there were multiple nights where after I had done a lot of the gutting work, I found myself alone out in the backyard and just crying by myself and just being like, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. I made a bad mistake.
Why did I do this?
And then I started like, here's the thing.
Which, just for listeners to catch up, part of the reason is when we bought this house, I'm still slowly recovering. So when we bought this house, you jumped into the project with zero help from me.
Right. It was all, it was all me.
Yeah.
And what I would do every time I'd hit those moments, usually a lot of times it was because, and we've talked about this before, our friend Paul Young talks about living in the grace of one day, like not future tripping, not going into thoughts of what I need in the future or how I'm going to do something in the future. Just stay present and just go, all right, what do I need for today? And there's grace for today's problems, issues, whatever. But a lot of times I'd find myself thinking about the enormity of the project, right? Like, who are the guys that I'm going to get for this? And how am I going to build that? I don't know how to build that. And do I have all the right tools? And I don't even know what vision looks like over in this area. And so I'd allow myself to start chipping away at all these future concepts that I didn't have the grace for in those moments. And so when I'd have those moments, I'd say, all right, it's not time to think about this. Today, all I know is that bathroom still needs to be tore out.
Right. So this is literally what that looks like internally when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so controlling. I control all of these things. I do all this stuff. Oh my gosh, I have an anger issue. Oh my gosh, I never knew that I feel sad a lot. And people, once they become awake to something about their behavior,
become hyper aware of all
I
of
have
this stuff.
poverty mindset beliefs. I have to change everything. I have to figure out how to be a completely different person. Like, I see this all the time when people start to recognize there's an area of transformation in their life that they need to go on. Then they become like so cruel to themselves about needing to have already figured out how to fix it. I remember Paul Young talking to me about how over responsibility meant I thought I was better than people. And I was like, what? Because he's like, if you feel over responsible for them,
to take care of their issues, to help them out, to get them somewhere. That means you're
acting like you know better than them and like you are more capable and you are a better human. And I remember being like, I don't want that, but I don't know how to fix that. I don't know how to get rid of that. And every time we have this enlightenment moment, we want it to instantly be gone.
Yep.
And that was same, like, you want, like, how am I going to do all this? There's not a way to know how to change and transform. I remember when my parents were getting divorced and I was recognizing that I dissociated. It was like, how do I not dissociate? I mean, this is like what everybody, and people do this all the time. They listen to our podcast and they'll be like awake and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I disassociate. I need to figure out how to fix all of that and never do it again. And there isn't a way to do a deep transformation process where you actually figure out how to do it all in one moment.
Nope.
There isn't a way to create a plan, a 5-step plan of how you're going to transform and change. There isn't a way to do that. You have to learn to do grace for the day and take one step at a time.
I had a guy the other day that I was chatting with, and he was like, I'm all in. I want to know how to do this. Tell me what I need to do. I want to get this done as fast as possible. So I will do exactly what you tell me to do. I'm like, your first problem is that you want to get it done as fast as possible.
Totally.
Anything done really well and worth any value is not done quickly.
That is a truth bomb.
Yeah, I mean,
It's true.
Yep. It's going to cost you something. It's going to take time.
Yeah. And I think that's the moral of the story of the house, right?
It really is. And so I noticed that even early on, I know a lot of people, I had some of my own tools. This is a couple years ago. I had some of my own tools that I'd got, and it was...
You're talking about literal tools, like wrenches and saws.
Yeah. And then a couple years later, my dad, he gave me some of his leftover tools. He was cleaning out his garage because he has lots of them, and built me a kit, which was awesome. It's a very good toolkit, but it wasn't everything. And it was for the season of life I was in, it was more than enough. Well, when I came up to this renovation project, I'm looking at what I had, what my dad gave me, and then what I was going to need. And I had to actually go online and go through the process of buying a whole bunch of new tools so that I could actually make everything work. And what I realize, even in these renovation seasons, you'll see what are your tools, what are some of the tools that were imparted to your family to live life, to experience life and stuff like that. And you're going to look and go, there's a lot of things I'm just not equipped with, I don't have, and I don't know how to use them.
Totally.
And so for me, there was even a bunch of tools that I bought that I didn't even know how to use, but I got the tools so that once I had them, then the projects would happen, then I could begin to learn them. And I learned along the way. I didn't wait for the project to, I didn't wait for me to learn, I'm going to go learn how to use this tool and then start the project. I'm like, I'm in the project. Here's the tool. How do I apply it? And then I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do I do this? Show me how to do this. And I think that one of the things that keeps people from having healthy renovations in their life is their fear to ask. Either their fear to do whatever they need to do to get the tools, then their fear to ask how to use the tools. Like, actually practically show me how to do this, because it feels so vulnerable to get someone else involved and say, I kind of have this thing that I know how to do, but I really don't know how to apply it fully. Can you give me more insight into this and show me, because it seems like you've mastered this in this area of your life. Can you help me get better at this? And so that was a huge thing for me that I watched in my own journey of life as I've gotten equipped with more tools and learned from other teachers and stuff like that, and then investigated, like, how do I apply this now?
Yeah. I mean, like, so emotionally that looks like, I know I've seen lots of people like going on the journey of learning what it looks like to reparent, learning what it looks like to have compassion on yourself, learning what it looks like to recognize your trauma triggers and what is going on inside of your body, learning how to not dissociate. There's a lot of different tools, learning how to communicate, learning how to be present.
Communication, just like most people don't even go on the journey of half the other stuff, but they're like, all right, how do I even communicate?
Yeah.
And they'll get some communication tools and they're like, I'm failing at this. Yeah, because you have to ask people, okay, now that you know about it, ask them, okay, how do I practically get good at applying these?
Absolutely. And so you weren't good at the tools when you started.
No, but it's interesting because just the other day there was pieces of, so now we have scattered pieces of the project left.
Totally.
Like I did 95% of the work in 3 months,
yep.
and now there's 5% of it that's going to take me probably another 3 months.
Totally. It's so true.
And it's all these little pieces, but I had this moment where I needed to do something, and immediately I like went and grabbed all my tools. And I felt so equipped and so empowered because I didn't have to ask anyone anything. I was like, I know exactly how to do this, how to cut this angle, how to insert this in here, from beginning to end, what's going to be needed. But it's because I allowed myself to fully be wildly out of control inside of a full-on renovation project and just tap out and submit to it.
I will say that this is what makes renovations in your soul tiring, is because everything you're doing is new.
Yep.
It's kind
and I would get overwhelmed on the job site because it was one new thing after another, where I literally felt like I was a kid having a panic attack almost. I mean, like not at that level, but I felt like a little kid again. And I was like, my anxiety was through the roof. And I'm like, I don't know. It's so much. But it was, I'm learning. Every day I'm learning. And the parts of us as human beings, we so feel like we should know better.
Yeah, we should already know how to do this. We should have already figured this out. We should already be an expert at this.
And I had to keep telling myself, I don't know this stuff. I shouldn't already know this stuff. I grew up with my dad working in electrical, and I still didn't learn these portions of stuff. And it's okay for me to learn now.
Yeah, which I think is such a huge key. I wish that everyone would give themselves permission to learn, whatever your age at, to learn whatever you didn't learn. That's one of the ways that we grow in humanity, is to have compassion on what we didn't learn and give ourselves grace to learn it when we need to learn it. I was thinking about the house because something that happened is you demoed everything.
Yeah.
And then you guys worked for like a month, and every day I would come and it didn't look like anything had changed. So even with demolition, at least you could tell things were changing.
Right, because you watched it dramatically, like everything got ripped apart. Look.
But then all of a sudden there was nothing. I could tell that nothing got done every day.
Weeks of nothing.
Yes. Because what was actually happening?
Well, what was really happening is that there was rewiring taking place and plumbing taking place and things hidden
Behind
in the walls.
In the attic.
And under the floor. And it's all this stuff that, like, from the outside, it just looks like you have a gutted house.
Yes. I was like, oh, it's not closer. It's
like,
not
we
closer.
got so much accomplished today. And she'd walk in and she'd be like, oh, what'd you do?
Yeah, I mean, I was always cheering you on and believed you. I could tell this is the phase of the rebuild where you can't tell. And this happens.
It's the most critical phase too.
Yes.
Because when you're moving wiring and plumbing and all these things, they're what make the house function properly.
Right.
Everything's built around that. Me deciding how high an electrical outlet is going to go is going to long-term decide where my sink goes. It's going to decide where my mirror goes, where the next light goes above that, how big of a mirror I can can have. Like it starts to like little thing that are seemingly little are determining everything else in the flow of the life experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting thing because this is where people want to give up.
Yeah.
This is where people are like, I'm not getting anywhere. It doesn't matter. They cannot see the transformation. So let's say that they're like really working on loving themselves. And so every day in the mirror, they're like speaking kindly to themselves, and they're dressing like to engage loving themselves, and they're showing up and they're doing all of these things, but they don't feel a transformation yet.
Yep.
They don't feel like it's easy. It feels as hard. I tell people that when you're on the journey of transformation, whatever lie you're pushing against, or whatever belief system, or whatever old habit you're pushing against, it's going to feel like that habit is unmovable. It's going to feel like you're hitting your head against a wall over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then one day the wall won't be there. But people give up in this phase. Like I probably could have given up and been like, oh my gosh, nothing's happening in the house.
Oh yeah. Some days it felt so pointless.
I mean, like I knew. But if I wouldn't have known, if I was just looking at the house progress, it would have felt like nothing was happening. But right after that season in the house was where all of a sudden things started, like then all of a sudden we put the floors in and we put the cabinets in and we put all at once. And we got that, and it became painted. We got it painted, and we did all that. And so it began this process where it was nothing. Suddenly a lot of transformation.
Yeah. One of the things that was really cool inside of it too is I talked about how having like me being worried, like who am I going to get and how's that going to happen? It's interesting because every time it was necessary that you have to make a decision. I have to order cabinets, right?
Totally.
Because if we don't now, we're not going to have them in time, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. All of a sudden, the right person pops up through a string of events that, I called and contacted this person a couple months ago when I first started the renovation. And then all of a sudden, they happen to be connected to that person. But you watch as the synergy and the beauty of life starts to unfold. When you need it, it makes itself available.
If you look for it. And I think that this is a belief system people can choose into, which is, I believe that I'm going to get what I need. I believe that what I need is going to come to me. I
had a person just the other day in a text exchange. I was able to get something that I needed, and they were helping in making that happen. And they're like, "This never happens. How did you get this to happen and facilitate this?" And I was like, "Things just seem to work out for me."
Totally. And what people don't understand, we talk about this in Living Fully Life, but our belief systems govern our life and what we have faith in our life. I'm not talking about spirituality faith. I'm just talking about what we believe we actually will see happen in our lives over and over
Set
again.
in motion. Yeah.
And so in this house project, you were like, I don't know a lot of things and how to get to things, but I believe the answers will come.
And it makes me think of What About Bob, the movie What About Bob, where it's like baby steps, Bob, baby steps. For those of you who've watched What About Bob, he's just like taking little baby steps forward. But literally, life is like that. When you're in a heart renovation season, you just have to take the baby steps of like, all right, I don't know a lot, but I know today I'm supposed to take this little tiny step.
Like, I'm just going to call this one person.
Yep.
And then we'll see where that leads. And then we'll see where that
And there were so
leads.
many times where I'd have just an inkling of, I need to call this one person.
Yeah.
I need to go pick up this one thing. There were places where I went to go buy something, and then in a random conversation, they're like, "Oh, have you thought about talking to so-and-so?" And then that's where what I needed came in.
Exactly.
In play. But what it becomes...
That was a lot of trust.
A lot of trust.
And a lot of you had to let go of control and be on an adventure.
I was exactly going to say that.
You were?
Yes.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say it's about learning how to partake in life as an adventure. Even in these renovation seasons, it's like, oh, cool. This is an adventure of my heart where I'm going to discover relationships that are super meaningful. Here's what's cool. So some of the people that came into my life, like Warren was one of the guys that ended up, his life had a whole shift in dynamic of what he was with job stuff and things like that, where all of a sudden
he got laid off from 2 jobs all of a sudden. because of what was going on, I think, with COVID.
Right. And so it shifted, and he just volunteered to come help me a couple days as a friend. And then it snowballed into him being there full time next to me. And what was really beautiful is out of the adventure of him saying yes to the process and me saying yes, we developed this really great friendship. Just talking to him last night, and we're talking about how much we love each other and what a gift each of us has been in this last season and how we each got inspired. But out of it, see, these renovation seasons will bring people in your life, not just to help you get through to the other side of it, but they'll be part of your eternal family.
Yeah.
They become part of your life family here and your long-term life of like, oh, long after Earth is come and gone, I'll know Warren.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I think it's the concept of trusting, like, there's so many journeys that I've gone on, emotional journeys, where it's like, okay, I need to deal with this area of hardness inside, or I want to become soft. I want to learn to be good at vulnerability. I want to learn to love myself. I want to get over self-hatred, anxiety, depression. I've had so many things that it's been like, okay, I want to grow through this. I want to get out of this. And I have never had a 5-step plan laid out in front of me where I could just follow the plan step by step.
When people try to be like, what's your 5-step plan? It gives me anxiety.
Totally. Or when you read the books that are like 7 steps to transformation, which I think we have an ebook that has like 7 things. But the concept is it's not ever linear. It's not like just do this, then this, then this. But if you will trust the process, if you trust I'm going to get what I need, like for me on emotional journeys, I always believe I'm going to get what I need. And that looks like, at the right time in my life, a trauma counselor came into our lives. Like I met her through something else. I met her through somebody else that I knew and had met with her a couple times and thought, okay, whatever. And then hit a season where I started having trauma symptoms. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, and she changed my life. One of the most, life-changing revelations came from her.
Yeah.
From meeting with her and our journey together. And so, but it came right when I needed it. And then there's people where you meet where I just have the right conversation or the right book comes into your lap or you hear the right podcast and so if you will believe that the things you need for your emotional journey, but it takes that trust, that letting go of control of I should be finished now. The process should be done now. Like you have to accept the process.
Right. So part of it is being restored. We've talked about this before in the past, but to our childlike wonder, not childishness, but childlikeness, childlike wonder, where a kid is just being in the day and they're not thinking, am I going to get fed? They just assume the dinner bell is going to get rang before life hits them in horrible ways. And then they start questioning everything. But I think that there's something so beautiful in these renovation seasons. They can either be tormenting to you or they can be revealing to you and they can be settling to you, where they reveal the fear that you have, reveal the insecurities that you have, reveal the lie that you believe that you're all alone on this face of the planet. And then they begin to settle you as you begin to partner with trust and believe that you're not alone inside of this world and believe that you're going to be taken care of as you co-create.
I think one of the interesting things about the journey was going from survival to vision. Yeah. And I think this for my own personal life, having gone through this season. So when everything was being demolished, in my life journey, not the house, it was like I had no vision. If people are like, who do you want to be in 5 years? I'm like, I want to make it to 5 years. I want to survive till then. If that happens, that's the miracle. People would be like, what's the dream for your life? I'm like, I don't have any. I just didn't have any. But through the house process, you have to start dreaming.
Yeah, you have to purposely dream. It won't move forward without it.
Getting vision for what you want to become, who you want to be.
You have to.
What you want your life to look like, what you want your life to feel like. And that remembrance, like, no, I'm powerful and I can make this house what I want it to be. Yeah. No, I'm powerful and I can make my emotional life what I want it to be. The lie that so many of us believe is this is just how it's always going to be. And we give up and we become victims to however life is. And when you're in trauma or survival, you do feel like you don't have power to change everything.
Yep.
And so I remember just thinking, there has to be this thing inside of you that starts to, this happened for me about a year and a half or 2 years ago, where Justin actually challenged me, and he's like, you have to get vision for your life again. You have to decide you want to live. You have to decide, for those of you who don't know, I was very, very sick. And so so I would just go out over and over again and be like, no, there is a plan for my life. And no, I'm going to be where I'm thriving again. There's going to be a day when I'm not thinking about being in pain all the time. There's going to be a day, like the vision of the future and dreaming for it. And we had to work on, and we had to have other people help us with actually the house vision, like talking through things and processing and looking at pictures. And I think that sometimes, like, we looked at Pinterest for so many things.
Right.
And what we do in our emotional house is we look for people that can show us what is possible.
Yep.
So when I see somebody that doesn't have poverty mentality, I don't think, why do you have that and I didn't have that?
And you're like, how did you get there?
It's like, okay, you're showing me this is possible. You're meant to expand my view of where I can, of who I can be and who I can become.
Yep.
I can't create something like that if I don't know that it exists or what it looks like. And so the idea of actually getting vision for, no, they have a good marriage. We can get to a good marriage. I don't have all of the steps. I don't know how to get there, but it's possible and we can head that direction.
Yeah. It's interesting when you're talking about vision, right? Like literally in a house, we could not move forward with anything until we decided, what do I want?
Yeah.
So foundationally, people, like you said, we have these lives that we feel like are just given to us. They just are what they are, but they're actually structural homes that are waiting for us to develop them, right? And make them what we want to actually deliberately make them.
Yeah.
And take them from shacks to mansions.
Yes.
And so we're sitting here and we're literally having to work this muscle of what do I want, which most people don't know what they want. They think they know what they want. They think they want what everyone else wants. Oh, it's the American dream. I want to be famous, or I want to have a bunch of money, or I don't know. I don't know what exactly it is, but you will develop your wants based on what society says you should have, what would be good for you. But it's not until you get internal and go, I don't care how everyone else does it. I don't care if this is the trend right now. What is it that I want for my life? And so once we could determine what we want, the question wasn't, if I sat every time and worried about where are we going to get the material for that? Does that exist? The cabinets that we had built, that Noah built for us, they didn't exist somewhere. We had to dream them, and then we had to build them. There are things inside of people's lives who are listening right now that they're not out there built yet. You have to begin to dream them instead of going like, well, where are they? Where does it exist? You may have to just initiate like, no, this is what I want. It hasn't been seen. Now, how do I create it, build it? How do I get to it? What do I need?
I feel inspired listening to you.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're right. There's an activation of becoming an active participant in your own life. And it's scary to try to create your own life. I remember in this house being like, I'm terrified because I'm in charge. And so if I move into a house that somebody else built and I don't like how it turned out, it's their fault. But if I actually have to dream for this house and I don't end up liking how it turns out, then I'm going to feel so sad. And it's the same kind of concept. It felt vulnerable to have to dream and to have to try to take action steps. It felt vulnerable when I was like, I don't know what it should look like or could be like. And there's so many options, and you can get paralyzed in life if you look at all of the options that are in front of you and you feel like I have to make the best choice and have it be absolutely perfect. It will literally shut you down.
Rip it out later.
You won't move. Yeah. And so we had to just be like, okay, we're going to do the best that we can, and we're going to dream, and we're going to create, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yep.
And we're just going to go, oh, so sorry. And we're just going to keep going on the journey.
Yeah. I thought about this. People in their lives will be living in their homes, like we talked about, the initial homeowner, just living as is. And they So for instance, when I actually came in and started the gutting process, there was no turning back.
Yes.
Right. But a lot of people, they don't start the gutting process. They're comfortable in where they're at. And so the idea of even changing a bulb feels exhausting. Like, oh, I got to change the bulb over there in that light. I don't want to have to do that.
And so they'll just get used to living in the dark.
Right. Absolutely. And one of the things that happens is it's not until a full gutting happens that you'll have to dream. And where am I getting with this? There's some of you out there that it wasn't or won't be until you lose the job, until you lose a marriage, until friendships all fall apart. Like, people are dreading these scenarios happening inside of their lives. These worst case scenarios are these fears that we have of, what if this happens to my life? Well, what if that thing that you're terrified of happening does happen, and it guts an entire part of your experience, where it shakes everything upside down to where you have to now actually get involved in deliberately designing your life.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there's two kind of renovations that you can do. You can do one because your house got destroyed by like a tornado, and so you have to rebuild it. And that's kind of maybe more like what my life felt like. And then there's ones where you choose.
Right. Where you're like,
actually, what do I want my home to feel like?
Yep.
What do I want my my inner world to feel like? What do I want my relationships to feel like? What do I want my connection to myself to feel like? What kind of life do I want? And then they choose, I'm going to go after renovating so that it can become what I'm looking for.
Yeah. I love that. Do you have more on that?
Well, I just was thinking about this, this message that one of my friends was sending me today. And she said, I feel like I've never been more consistently present in my own body. And that's all thanks to you guys with LFA in the group. I feel like I'm actively in the moment, choosing to be a good friend to myself. I'm almost there. I just feel like this higher level of safety within myself and my inner world. This is what I was going to say. It feels like before I wanted to escape myself, and now I don't want to leave anymore. It feels like home, and it feels warm and cozy. I feel so powerful about life, like I can and will find what I'm looking for in all the ways. And I'm like, this is the goal, is that we create an emotional home that we want to live in.
Yeah.
That we create. Like, that's one of the things that we've worked
on. I want
on.
my life. I want to be present with myself. I like actually being in my own skin and my own body. I don't want to just escape daily.
But for us to do that, this is emotionally and physically, there's a cost.
Yeah.
There's a huge cost to it.
Major sacrifice has to take place.
Yeah.
Time,
anytime
money,
I've changed,
energy.
Yeah. Anytime I have changed an area, like let's say a pocket of anxiety, for me to change living just out of anxiety all the time means I have to do the work.
Yeah.
I have to renovate the anxiety out of my life.
Yeah.
And it's a process, and it takes time and intentionality. And there were days when you would come home, Justin, and you'd be so exhausted because all day long, all you're doing was manual labor, chipping away at another project and another thing. And all day long, all you're doing was making 5,000 decisions over and over and over again. And that it costs something. Every place that my life has transformed, and it's transformed in so many ways. I used to be so suicidal. I used to be so depressed. I used to have so much self-hatred. I used to be so uncomfortable in my own skin. All of those things, I had to pay a price to renovate out of my life.
Yep. And you're paying a price living it. I think about people who haven't renovated a home, but the home's falling apart, and you're slowly...
Like my parents.
Death by 1,000 cuts. You just keep like paying to keep up broken stuff, and it just keeps being more broken instead of just being like, no, I'm gutting this. I'm starting fresh. I'm going to pay top dollar to put in what I need to put into my home so that it works well and efficient and I feel alive.
Well, it'd be like my parents living in the hoarder land. They just got used to living in that. Instead of doing the work. I mean, it was a lot of work. It
cost them years of life.
Yeah. And years of stress and years of anxiety and years of sickness. But they were overwhelmed at the idea of the work it was going to take to clean their house out. And it was a lot of work. Me and you did it.
Yeah, we did it. We did it in 7 days with a crew of people. But, the concept was we did have to commit to it, and it was a lot of work to do it, but it was actually less work to clean out their entire house than it was for them to live in the constant anxiety and frustrations. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Big time.
So we hope that like one of the things about our house is we worked really, really hard on it. And now there's still a lot of little things that need to be done. It's not fully finished. It feels unfinished still. And I think that that's a big part of the emotional process is you can make a ton of progress and transform so much. And still there's loose ends that aren't habits that aren't completely gone, beliefs that still pop up, triggers that still happen in relationships. And the goal at that point is to like keep recognizing how far you've come.
Yep.
So every day when we think like, oh, we still need to do this and this and this, we look at the house and we're like, but look at all that Justin did and his dad. Look at all that has already been accomplished. Look at all that is happening.
And the truth is when you become a homeowner, there are 1,000,001 things that can always be updated and done on the house. And you realize it. You're like, and then that could be fixed.
It's never ending.
And that is life.
That's the same as the emotional process too.
That is life.
You have to not obsess about getting everything fixed.
Getting across the finish line. There's no real finish line. It's just
it's the path you take.
Have I created a new path and a lifestyle that's going to be conducive to growth, development, freedom, joy, experience, connectedness, all of that. So you guys, if you got anything out of this, rate, review, subscribe, and share. And again, Justin and Abi, abi.com. Right now, it is the final day to sign up for Living Fully Alive. Join our immersion program. Be part of the global community that's getting connected and having cool experiences.
And also, I want to thank people. They've been so supportive of we've been on the house journey on Instagram. They like comment on all kinds of things.
Oh, man.
We've had like some people like
give us some housewarming gifts that were just bless my socks off. I was like, I am really undone. I'm undone by the way that people have loved me in the process.
And this is what I would say about the emotional health journey. If you go on the journey, you'll find love show up in ways that you didn't expect. And I think over and over again, it was really, really hard. There were so many days that we were like, we have to make this decision. And I remember, I spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours looking at tile. It didn't just magically come to my brain. I had to go on this whole process to learn. Now I think I could be better at it the second time around. But I think then you just find these people that you're just chipping away. You just keep, like there's something about you just keep going. And then you have moments where people come in and they just love on you in the middle of it.
And take care of you and fight for you. And it was really cool. And it was a really cool process. Last to say this, just speaking about the house, it was Dad and I had a handful of difficult exchanges that we had, and they ended up concluding really well. And, Dad walked away from working with me. What a champ. He was there every day. And he just like gave all of himself over to it with me. And the day he was leaving, he told my mom, he was like, oh, when I was leaving, I wanted to cry. And she was like, well, why didn't you just go back and hug your son and cry? Oh, yeah.
Your dad's never said something like that before.
No. He's probably thought it, but he hasn't said it out loud. And it was really cool because we got that bonding experience. And that's the other thing is that some of the relationships that you've longed to be closest to will find themselves blossoming as you engage the journey. Because it'll require that type of connection that will for you to get the help that you need. It'll require that type of connection. It'll be really cool what comes out of it. And
one last thing, I know we got to wrap this up, but you now feel like such a boss. Like now when things go on in the house, you like get your tools out and you like fix it and you do all this stuff like because you feel like you learned so much.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to tell people. I
feel competent and capable.
Whatever journey you go through, you walk away with the ability to own that skill, that emotional process. That's literally why we're helping people is because we walk through the emotional process and then we can help other people with the tools we learned on the way. And that's the beauty of whatever process you're in your life that you're paying for, it can end up transforming and helping everyone around you.
All right, everybody. We're done. Peace out.